Just when you thought taxes couldn't get any trickier, the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, is warning taxpayers about a new scam. Schoolsfirst Federal Credit Union is here to talk more about this and how we can reduce the risk of being a victim of a government imposter scam. Joining us today is Nathan Calhoun, Calvine Pointe Branch Manager. Welcome back, Nathan.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, so Nathan, scams are such an unfortunate topic. We hate when we hear about them and people being scammed, and there's a way to avoid them. Can you tell us a little bit more, though? I understand that there's a mail scam that's going on right now.
Absolutely. Government or IRS imposter scams are nothing new. We've come on here and talked about them before. In fact, the Federal Trade Commission says that they're the #1 most reported type of scam out there. But this one has a couple of changes that it's doing than the ones we've seen in the past to obviously lure more victims in to going along with the scam. Instead of receiving like an electronic communication from what potentially would be the IRS, this one actually delivers a letter through the postal system. And instead of talking to people about, taxes being owed, it's promising a refund. So a typical version of this scam would be a potential victim would receive a mailing, saying that it's from the IRS. And it's advising of an unclaimed refund that's available, attempting to lure people in. And to unlock the refund, it says all you have to do is give us some of your personal identifying info. So it's asking for things like pictures of your ID, your bank routing information, or even your social security number. When this information is handed over, it's given to a scammer, and now the scammer is potentially stealing your identity.
Wow. Okay. I mean, if I get a letter in the mail from the IRS, I'm going to pay attention to it so I can understand why people see that and maybe fall victim to being scammed. How can we identify this scam to ensure we catch it before we do fall victim?
So in this particular version, what we're seeing is that a postal service, maybe just a delivery service in general, will drop off an envelope. It'll be one of these cardboard envelopes, and inside of it will be a letter from the IRS. It'll have the IRS logo or masthead at the top. So if this sounds familiar to you or it's something that you receive in the future, be very cautious. Another thing is when you're reviewing the letter, if you kind of see some awkward phrasing, maybe a spelling mistake, grammar error, something along those lines, this is a red flag for fraud, definitely.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, even with emails, I'll look for that if I think I'm being scammed. Something's kind of mispronounced or misspelled, so that's helpful to know. But let's say we find a letter that doesn't fit that exact description that you just gave us, but it still seems kind of off. Do you have any tips to double check its validity?
I would just say be very careful about the things that you get and the interactions you have with these kind of letters, or any kind of letter, really. I would say that one of the easy first things I would do is I would look on the letter, and generally they're going to give you some sort of contact info, a phone number, email address. But instead of interacting with those numbers, I'd go to the IRS website, which is irs.gov, and just verify that information, that contact information. If that's what's listed on the IRS website, it's legit, but, in most cases, it's probably not. The other thing, while I'm at the IRS website, I would compare the filing info against the letter to what's available on the IRS's website. And another thing you can do, generally, as we discussed, a lot of these communications will have errors, they'll have grammar issues, maybe punctuation or spelling issues. Government agencies like the IRS really scrutinize their communications before they send them out. They're going to look polished, they're going to look professional when they're actually from the IRS. So if you're seeing those kind of errors, stay away. That's a big red flag.
Yeah.
And lastly, just a healthy amount of skepticism, I think, out there in the world will help. Doing things like instead of just immediately calling the number on a letter, but verifying independently will help you with just even outside of this kind of scam.
Yeah, so anytime receiving money or asking for money, just really making sure you do that research on for yourself first. Are there any other ways to verify that communications from the IRS are legitimate?
One thing I can just tell people in general is that the IRS does not communicate people through electronic channels. They're generally not emailing you. They're not going to text you, and they're definitely not going to interact with you on social media. If you're receiving those kind of communications and it's somebody claiming to be the IRS, stay clear of that. These are always going to be attempts at getting your personal identifying information, or just an attempt to get you to click on a link, which would download, some form of malicious software onto your device, which leads to further fraud or scams in the future. Also, if you suspect fraud or a scam, you can actually go report that at fraud.org.
Okay.
Or if you want to just learn more about proper reporting mechanisms, go to the IRS's website, which, as I mentioned, is irs.gov.
Alrighty, so biggest takeaway from this, you really have to do your research, double check everything. When you're seeing something in the mail from the IRS, go to the website, see if you're seeing what they're talking about in that letter that was mailed to you, and see if it matches up.
Absolutely. Like I say, skepticism in this world, sadly, it is a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Because we do get a lot of communication either through digital channels or written channels. Independently verifying, not clicking on links, not calling the phone number in the communication, but going to the website that we know and trust.
Yeah.
And finding that information is the safest way.
Okay, that's good to know. That's important to know because I feel like with mailing, that was kind of the old school way to scam people. So now we're so much more alert with online if we get something weird emailed to us. But now scammers are kind of going back to that old way where now we kind of think it's a little bit more official, but we still have to do that research. Nathan, thank you. Alrighty, to our viewers, you can visit one of the many Schoolsfirst Federal Credit Union branch locations as seen on the screen. And you can find out more online by going to schoolsfirstfcu.org.